You got your facial hair trimmed up and the haircut the way you want. You know,
Hey,
you didn't notice you going out
good. I'm looking clean. I'm feeling good. I'm glad to be back with my guys. Hey, and you know what's most important to me today, Gary.
What Duke got beat in
Coming
the
off
girls'
a Carolina loss, baby. There's no better day to see you in Lexington than after Carolina loses.
No, here we go. All right, we're back for another episode of Talking Preps. It is basketball season. I got the crew back with me. I got Gary Richmond, Gary Wait with everybody. Y'all know Gary from football. He's the guy who finished second to me in the picks.
Oh, you notice he reiterates that he beat me by one game.
And then we got Randall Clark, the best trainer I know, back for another season. And we got the guru of North Carolina High School basketball, Rick Lewis, the number one voice. Rick, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, here we go. Let's start out with a little Sweet 16. Randall, what do you see here?
I see North Mecklenburg is where they've been all season long. They are off to a very, very strong start, 11-1, and with a big matchup looming on Tuesday that I'm sure we're going to talk about. Excited. I like where we're at right now. I think Lake Norman's playing some great basketball. I love to see we got some of these county schools, Porter Ridge and Marvin Ridge. I think Queens Grant has got off to a really strong start.
Yeah.
North Lincoln has lost some games, but they play some really, really good competition. And I think that's the most important thing to me. When I look at this Sweet 16, a lot of these schools have just been beating up on each other. And I think that's really important. And I want to applaud the coaches for going out and playing people, because I think that's really important and to get your team, ready for March.
Yeah, I know they're number 2, but I know Lake Norman feels a little disrespected. They had not a lot of talk about the state champs. They lost to a really good Cherokee team, and they're right there again.
Yeah, and I think it's hard to say that a number 2 team is under the radar, but I don't think a lot has been talked about them, and I think Coach Mack uses that.
She feels a little disrespectful.
I'm sure there's bulletin board material up there at the lake, but I think we've been doing this for a while, and I think this list is one of the better lists. Cannon is at 9. And I'm sure, when you look at the schedule they played some really tough competition.
And they've had some injury bugs too, injury problems.
Yeah, and they've been bitten by the injury bug. So, I think I like this. You look at Concord Academy and you're like, how do you have a team that's 12-7? And it was something that I fought with really before the break. But, we got to the break and they won some really big games and they beat some of these teams that are on here. And, even at 12-7, like I said, they've been playing a lot of people. And I think they deserve to be on this list.
I think the team jumps out to me is that North Lincoln team. They've always kind of been in East Lincoln's shadow. I know they beat East Lincoln pretty good early in the year, and they moved from 15-7 in the current poll.
And that North Lincoln team, they had a 3-game stretch where they played Alexander Central, and some of these other teams that are very good. And then all of a sudden, they got done with that 3-game stretch, and they have just been putting a beating on anybody and everybody who's in their way, including East Lincoln, like you mentioned.
There you go. That's what I wanted to get to. Gary, I wanted to ask you about just the state of girls basketball. I'm noticing rosters are smaller than in recent years. A lot of teams don't have JV programs. What do you see as a former girls basketball coach?
I see a decline in the sport. Now, what surprises me about it is the popularity of women's college basketball, as well as the WNBA is exploding.
Yes.
However, high school is the feeder to college, and I don't see the feeder. I'm like, where are the players coming from? Because we focus mainly on this area, and this is as down a year that I've ever seen as far as the amount of talented teams. Even in the list that you just showed, there were only 4 CMS teams in there. Yeah. And I can't remember when it was that few CMS.
I remember there'd be 4 CMS teams in the regionals, much less ranked in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, in the Sweet 16. So I'm like, okay, that that's what stood out to me, not the teams that were at the top, but just the fact of the lack of teams in CMS. And I think the state of it is it's rescinded 30 years.
Wow.
Almost.
Wow.
I've never seen it this bad in 30 years. And I come up with the number 30 because 30 years ago is when I started coaching girls basketball.
Rick, and I know you go ahead.
That's as worse as I've ever seen it in the last 30 years.
Rick, Gary says the worst in 30 years. I know you're more of a boys guy, but what are you seeing in the girls game?
I do think it's going to take time for the girls to reciprocate back. I think, like he said, like the popularity of the girls game at the college level is at the highest it's ever been, and also the popularity of WNBA.
Yeah.
I do think you're going to see it filter down in the middle school, and it's going to probably take 5 to 6 years before you see it come to fruition at the high school level.
Hey, Randall, but how did the bottom fall out? Because just a couple of years ago, we had really good girls basketball.
Unfortunately, I think we are in a win now focus. And I think that a lot of these kids that have been going to all these other schools are now going to specific schools. And I'm not just talking about privates. I mean, you got Queens Grant, who is absolutely loaded. You got Canton, who doesn't have a JV team. And so they're absolutely loaded. North Macon, Miller Creek. So you're very, very top heavy in this area. And you have kids that are going to these, schools to go play basketball. And I think it's changed a little bit because, the talent level is obviously down as well. That has a part to do with it. But I do think that a lot of these kids are all going to the same 4, 5, 6 schools, which is making it a little lopsided as well.
Should there be maybe super conferences and get away from conference play? Because you're really taking a lot of teams that are have-nots and having them play halves every week, and all they're doing is losing by 60. And to me, it'd be hard as a parent and a kid to keep coming back.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we had to address. And I think the state tried to address it with the 8 team, going to 18.
8 classes,
yeah, 8 classes, but I think it just waters it down even more because you kind of move into that everybody gets a participation trophy.
That's Gary's turn.
Yeah. So that part makes it really, really tough. If you go to super conferences, I think you're just telling everybody that this is the way it's going to be, and it's going to be this way for a while. And so you kind of, it's not a bad idea. I just think it makes it hard on, how do we separate them at the end? Do you do a super pool and then you just place them in the state playoffs? Like it gets kind of tricky.
Well, conference championships don't matter anymore now, right, Gary? It's like football.
Yeah, the conference championships don't matter. But one of the things I've noticed being in a school almost every day is, sometimes when I don't have a class, I'll walk by the gym, talk to some of the coaches or whatever. And, I just peep in, and if they're playing basketball, you'll see 2 or 3 girls that are playing with the boys. Okay. And I'll go up to them and say, well, you on the basketball team? No, I don't play. Why not? I don't know. I don't want to play. I said, well, you're good enough to play. Have you ever played before? I played in middle school. So that transition from middle school to high school is where we're losing a lot of the girls. And like Randall said a few minutes ago, the win now syndrome. They don't want to go out for a team that they think is going to lose all the time or get blown out all the time.
But Gary, that's what I'm saying. Why we need to maybe have super conferences, because you have, and I don't want to name school, a school, but you got school X, and going into Tuesday night, they're going to lose by 70. And they know it, and the mamas know it. Yeah. So why not give them a chance to play like teams and let the powerhouses play like teams and do it that way?
But playing devil's advocate on that, Langston, is if you do that, you're going to have everybody gravitate toward the super teams, and you will never fix the problem. I think the solution is, in a situation like that, you may not have to play as many conference games and allow those teams to play more tougher non-conference games.
Okay. Well, I just think something needs to be
solution, because of the state we're in right now,
Yeah.
And I know you would have to go through the state to get permission to do this, but if you know the kids are not competitive enough to play a varsity schedule, quit trying to force it and let them play a JV schedule and build up, you know, some confidence, some skill. A lot of kids don't stick with it long enough to develop either of those things because they get so frustrated with the losing.
Right.
You know, and the teasing from the classmates. You know, I hear it all the time. How many did y'all get beat by last night?
Yeah.
Not did you win? How many did you get beat by last night? Or did y'all get double figures last night? Nobody wants to hear that kind of question, you know, from your peers on a nightly basis. And you know, it's almost like the same argument we used to have with Garinger football. It's like, why are they playing a varsity schedule? All you're doing is getting these kids beat up.
Right.
They're totally outmanned, and they get frustrated, and they come back out, you know, after getting beat like that the year before, and so they're always starting over. And then the coach is always starting over because the coaches get frustrated with this too. No, I mean,
absolutely.
You don't want to go out there and know you're going to get beat by 50 before the referee even throws the ball up. I mean, it's tough.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a very real issue. That's something we'll probably be talking about throughout the rest of the year. But let's take a look at who Randall put on his midseason Observer All-Star team. These are some of the better players in the city. And who'd you pick as a player of the year, Randall?
That's a good question.
You don't remember?
No, I thought it was going to be on here.
I forgot, but tell me about this team while I look it up.
Well, you know, Janiyah Boyd at Monroe has just been lighting it up. She averaging like 32 points a game out there, and has really made that program relevant. Now that she's back at her home school, Ashana Holland is a name that we've had on this list for a few years now. You know, she's been playing great. I put as Rick's favorite player. I can't believe I forgot.
Denise
Joseph. I don't know. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, Denise, but I'm also sorry, Coach Rick.
Randall, what happened?
Yes, I'll get back to her. But Zamian Bynum has been great. Young guard out of Queens Grant. She's been playing excellent. Ashanti Taylor over at Porter Ridge, as most of you know, she can just fill it up. Rihanna Menard at Lake Norman, like we said, she's really been leading that team. So, you know, the first team is, you know, those kids are, you know, they're winning games, but also leading their teams. You know, so the first team is well represented. I really like the second team too. Kiara Anderson is a name we've had on here for a while. She leads that Mallard Creek team that, you know, they hit a rough patch, but you know, Tuesday night they can turn it all around. Justice Alexander, the leader of that Concord Academy team, averaging about 15 points. Allie Smith can really light it up in North Lincoln. Miley Malcolm has been really good with Ashanti Taylor now that she's back at Porter Ridge. And everyone's favorite lefty, Miss Kelsey Ryan, lighting it up.
My favorite lefty. That's that everybody's
that is definitely your favorite lefty. And my player of the year, Miss Denise Joseph, the walking double-double up in North Mech. She's been playing excellent basketball and an excellent young lady, and it's truly been a joy to watch her play.
Yeah, I think you know, she's looking like maybe the best player in North Tech since Andre Extension, which is pretty impressive. All right, Rick, let's flip it over to the boys' Sweet 16.
Well, first of all, I want to commend Concord Academy, Davidson Day, and Providence Day. They played the toughest schedule of any team in the state, 1, 2, and 3, especially with Concord Academy, I think playing the second, and they maintained that number one ranking. They lost to Greensboro Day by 1 at Greensboro Day. Of course, they're nationally ranked. And then, of course, you know, Greensboro Day loses to Gaston Day. So you're going to see a lot of that at the private school level.
Yeah.
The thing that you'll see in the rankings, I think the Sweet 16 this year, I think you're going to see about 8 teams that will solidify themselves throughout the course of the season. And then you're going to have the other 8 teams just fluctuate in and out because of the parity that you're going to see at the conference level. The surprise team for me this year is Marvin Ridge. Marvin Ridge lost 2 of their top 3 seniors last year as far as scoring, and they have done a tremendous job. Pat McCarthy had a great weekend at the Mike Cheminsky. They beat some really good teams there. They're 11-2. I think they're one of the surprise teams, especially I think at the 8A. The other team that really has surprised me too, to some degree, is Hunter Huss.
Yes.
Hunter Huss is, I think, in the 5A division, and they picked up a very quality win over Myers Park at the Mike Cheminsky, and they have one of the better players in the state in Jaleel Smith. Outside of that, you're looking at, you go down from Aldrich Hill is another team that's sort of a surprise team. They had Brett Friedman last year that averaged like 24 points a game, and they lost their third leading scorer. So they didn't return a lot, and they're back in the Sweet 16. So Mike Kraft
won 9 in a row, Rick, 9 in a row.
I saw them this weekend, and they've done a tremendous job. They're 11-2. So I think those are the big storylines. And then outside of that, you're going to see, especially in the conference with the MECs, 7A, 8A, with North MEC, Chambers, Butler, Independence, and Chambers. And those teams, they're just going to beat up on each other during the course of the season.
Absolutely. Randall and Gary, North MEC and West Charlotte and Queens Grant, I think they may have one senior between them. Bunch of sophomores, bunch of juniors. They're in the top 5 in the Sweet 16. The future looks bright.
I mean, you got the best. You got the best coach in the area, and Joe Badgett. His team. He's always going to have his team.
The area or the state?
Either one, area or state. I'll put him. I'll put it on the state too. I don't have a problem putting it on it, putting that stamp on him. He'll be all right. They're a really young basketball team, and I think they've grown tremendously from last year to this year. They're playing really good basketball right now. Obviously, he's one of those guys where, like I said earlier on the girls' side, he's going to play anybody, anywhere. And I think that's why his teams are always battle tested and they make these deep playoff runs.
They won 13 in a row. In West Charlotte, kind of, similar story. They only lost to Queens Grant and Oak Hill. They've kind of come along. They got Kahari Coleman.
But basketball is always better in Charlotte when West Charlotte is playing well.
But I want to preface another thing about Queens Grant. They did lose early, and that's when they had Chase Smith. He was sidelined with an injury. Yes. So they're playing extremely well. And the game they played against West Charlotte, and I think you were there, Langston, just shows you the amount of young talent, especially in that 2028 class. Between West Charlotte and Queens Grant, the future looks really, really good.
Yeah, there was a dunk in that game. I mean, this kid, it's like, his hands were over the top of the white square. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, Queens Grant is athletic. They're really good. And I think that, if they can keep that team together, I know we were saying this about Chambers a year ago, and Chambers lost their best 2 players. But they keep that team together, Queens Grant and West Charlotte could make legit cases for top 25 rankings in the next 2 years. They're really, really good. And Gary, your alma mater, North MEC, they dropped 2 with the classic Tennessee High School over the Christmas break, but they look like they're right there, ready to make a run and maybe a 3rd straight state championship.
I think they'll be in the talk when we get to March. Mm-hmm. They'll be playing that final weekend. I think Dwayne likes to go out of state during the holidays to see how his team will handle adversity and who can handle adversity.
Right.
Things that he doesn't get a lot in the local area. So, I think he wants to put his players in a situation where they're unfamiliar with so that they know how to adjust later in the year. Because
I hear that, but I will also challenge Dwayne if he wanted to put his team in some adversity, he can get that Mike Cheminsky tournament because that was some high level hoops. That kind of gave me that feeling of the Bojangles shootout that one game.
I think Dwayne is a little old school in that he thinks nobody can see him if he's not around. But I'm just saying
hey, Derek, you are 100% right when you say that. That's the best. That's the best way to put it. Yeah.
No, but he thinks nobody can see what he has if he goes away. But with technology today, everybody
you can see everything. And I saw the games in Tennessee. There was nobody in the stands. Gary, there was nobody in the stands in Tennessee. At Marvin Ridge the other week, it was packed, loud. I'm telling you, it gave me that first time I've had that feeling of Bojangles shootout, when the Bojangles shootout was the tournament in the state and one of the best in the country, like the John Wall is now. That's what the Bojangles shootout was
See,
then. And it had that feel.
Dwayne still has that mentality when we both came into coaching.
Yeah.
When the playoffs came, you went to your coaching manual. We got a state coach's manual with every coach's phone number in it. And you have to look up who you were playing and then who they may have played. And then you had to get on the phone and call coaches and say, can I get this tape from you? Can I borrow this tape right here? And see, it doesn't work that way anymore, Dwayne.
No.
Hey, Gary.
You just log in the computer and
see everything. A lot of times it's HD now too.
Y'all better leave D. Lou alone.
Wayne's my guy, man. I'm just being honest.
Start texting saying you need to be on the show this week.
Hey, Gary, we could have given a lot of adversity playing Queens Grant.
Yes.
And I guarantee you that would have been one of the games of the year in the Charlotte area.
Not one of the. That'd have been the game of the year. Absolutely.
And here's the other thing, Rick. If you play these local tournaments, you don't have to pay for hotel and travel.
Well, I was going to make that argument. And here's the thing with a lot of these parents with the affordability and the economy and stuff, here's the thing, like I'm going to make a family go spend 4 nights away during the holidays. That's probably going to cost that family probably close to $1,000 in hotel accommodation.
And where are you staying is the question. I don't want to go to Tennessee, but no offense.
Versus sleeping in my own bed, and just enjoying that, having a home cooked meal. And I think the kids would too. And I think the other thing too that's missing from it, and I think this is a thing that could really help basketball at the local level. The fans want to see the best matchups.
Yes.
If you really want to generate interest, play locally and create the interest in the fans where they go, man, North Meck versus Queens Grant one night, or Queens Grant versus Myers Park, or Myers Park versus North Meck the next night.
Or Myers Park or North Meck versus Providence Day.
And Rick, you talking about
those kids would get playing in front of a packed house is something they'll remember for the rest of their lives.
That's correct.
And Rick, you're talking about the economics of it. From my point of view as a coach, one of the things I hated more than anything is fundraising. I hate it, and I'm sure that's what they do. They do some fundraising and get people to donate. Mm-hmm. Or they go out and sell something. I don't know what they sell nowadays, but they're selling, these discount cards or things like that. All of that to raise money for a trip. When, if you stay local, it's enough tournaments in a 30-mile radius that you're going to get some competition. And that's what you want.
And here's the other thing, Gary.
It's competition.
And here's the other thing. No one does a better job of covering sports in the state of North Carolina than Langston Wirtz and the Charlotte Observer. The amount of coverage that the Observer and Langston Wirtz gives the kids in this area is second to none. And that publicity is something that means more than anything you can think of. It's priceless.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, Rick, but I'd love to see all the Charlotte teams stay home. It'd be kind of cool if we could have y'all know my dream is to have a city championship. Even if you had something like that over Christmas, that could be.
Well, we're working on that, Langston.
I mean, you imagine the kids getting the big city championship trophy and jackets, rings. I mean, that could be, that'd be a pretty special experience.
Well, we did that to some degree on the JV level.
Yeah.
This past season. I mean, the past week at the Mike Jaminski. Our goal is for next year is to make it a 4-day event and get top 16 JV teams in the area and have like a city championship, and also get the top 16 teams from the Charlotte metro area and do the same thing. And I think that would create more interest than anything else we could do.
I don't disagree. Well, Rick, since you're talking, tell me what's the state of boys basketball today? We talked about girls. What are you seeing when you look around and you see boys? I have some thoughts, but I want to hear yours.
Well, it sort of goes back to what we're talking about. I think the one thing that's missing from the equation is, the high major prospects. And you just look at Chambers, and they lost Taurus Bowie and Marcus Clark. They transferred out of state, and then also the number one player in the state of North Carolina, and also the country, CJ Rosser, transferred to Southeast Prep. So I think that's our biggest problem that we're facing today is so many of the high profile kids transferring out of state. So it does affect the excitement of fans going to go see the high level kids. And I think that's a situation where, whether it's the John Wall does a very good job, they attract a lot of them. It's always been a great event, but that's what people want to see. And if we could sort of emulate that and do something like that in Charlotte, and use that as a focus point, like, why do you have to go out of state when you can get the same amount of exposure as you can locally? Now, in the case with some of these kids, I know they're going to get the NIL money, and that might be a reason why they do. And they say, okay, I'm going to play against tougher competition. But a lot of these kids got where they were before they transferred. I mean, you look at, even at Chambers, you look at the situation there. Those kids made the NBA top 100 camp while they were at Chambers.
Right.
So I think, if we sort of change the thought process, we could make it a little bit easier as far as get the excitement back at the local level. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that we're missing. And I think, if you look at the new conference that, I can't remember the name of it, that North Mecca's in, you're going to probably have a lot of excitement this year, because there's going to be 4 or 5 teams that are going to be competing. West Charlotte, Independence, Butler, Chambers. Those are all going to be excellent games. And I think you're going to see a lot of excitement around all those games locally.
Yeah, I think this is a unique opportunity, though, Gary, because we don't have the big star. That opens up the door for new people to kind of come in wrestling.
Yeah, but something that Rick said just caught my attention when he mentioned NIL.
Right.
How many of these kids that are getting NIL once they leave high school, football or basketball, okay, are kicking some of that NIL back to their high school? And y'all know who I'm thinking about, but I'm not going to.
I think I know who you're thinking about, but I know of 2 that do that in the private school side. I don't know of anybody on the public school side is doing it.
Yeah, because we were talking about affordability.
Yeah.
Well, if you have some past graduates that are now,
thousandaires.
Yeah, bringing in the bag, are they kicking some of that out? And see, they can write that off as a tax donation.
Yeah, they could. But it's an interesting. NIL is definitely an interesting thing. It's hard to, somebody says you can make $60,000-$70,000 by coming to a high school. It's kind of hard to turn that down.
It is.
Let's look at the players, the midseason all-observer team, and I do know that Rick picked Jaleel Smith as player of the year on this one. But go ahead, Rick.
Well, the one thing I did when I accumulated this list, I looked at the stats, just not scoring, but I basically did a accumulation of scoring, rebounds, assists, steals, and also shot blocks, and sort of put it together and came up with a list. And one thing that was really unique about it, there was 3 players that had over a 40-plus average, and that was Jaleel Smith, the kid from East Lincoln, Jackson, and the other kid was Travion Williams at Hickory Ridge. But the other thing that I put into the equation, as far as there was a lot of kids that I had to wean down from that, but also these players had the best stats, but they're doing it on a team that's very successful, and they're winning, and they're doing it against high-level competition at the high school level.
Randall, I'm looking at this list, and I just see a lot of new faces. We were talking about, Charlotte not having the star power, and I was just saying, trying to prompt Gary, he went a different direction. There's opportunity for new guys to step up this year, and you look at this list, I think only Chase Smith may have been on the all-observer team last year.
It is. I mean, the big thing is, we mentioned earlier, is this 2028 class is very special, and it's been a while since we had a class like this. Yeah. And it's really important if this class stays in Charlotte. Jaleel Smith is an amazing athlete, but also a really good basketball player. Kahari Coleman is a crazy athlete, but also a really good basketball player, and the same with Chase Smith. Obviously, Ashton and Cam have shown what they can do the last couple of years, leading their teams into deep playoff runs. But it's good. It is refreshing on the boys' side to see new faces. But Coach mentioned earlier, it's important that they stay here and don't end up leaving for the IMGs or Spires.
Well, that's going to be hard if they start throwing the dollars out. That's a hard decision. All right,
and here's the other thing, Langston.
All right, go ahead.
You just look at the top three that's on that list. They're all sophomores.
Yes.
Jaleel, Kahari, and Chase.
Yeah.
Those three players have an opportunity to win a state championship for the next 3 years. And they could be a household name in the state of North Carolina. You know, my wish is I hope they all three stay here. I think it would be great for the state of North Carolina in basketball in general. And I just want to mention one thing. You just mentioned something about Jaleel Smith.
Okay.
He's been one I sort of mentored a little bit, you know, as far as, you know, being more mature on the court. He's come a long way. I love the young man. I was looking at his stats, and there's not many people in the state of North Carolina that's averaging 29 points a game, averaging right at 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 6 steals a game, and a half a block a game. This young man is, when they went up against Gaston Christian, and Gaston Christian is really good. They're one of the only North Carolina teams to beat Greensboro Day.
Yeah.
They had Gaston Christian by 20 points. And you could just see how competitive he was as a young man. And he's one of the most competitive young men that I've seen. And that's why I picked him as the MVP so far, Player of the Year out of this list.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very impressive list. And, you know, again, to your point, if these guys stay around, it could be something special. Let's look at the games of the week. Let's start on the girls' side, Randall. We'll come back to that North Mallard Creek game last, but Porter Ridge has a big week because they're playing the number 2 and number 3 teams in their conference.
Porter Ridge Tuesday night. That's going to be a very interesting game, as we talked about earlier. You know, they got to go on the road this week. We talked about Miley Malcolm. Marvin Ridge is not an easy place to play, but Marvin Ridge is also very, very good. You know, they're led by Kate Schindler, who's going to Richmond. Sophie Fritz is back there, and Marvin is just playing really, really good basketball right now. So that makes Tuesday night very interesting. I would have loved to be in the game, but I mean, I think everybody knows where me and Coach Richmond are going to be Tuesday night.
All right, Gary. I know the Mallard Creek people want to hear from you. Let's go. Mallard Creek and North Mac. It's the rivalry.
Well, first of all, let me say this about Mallard Creek.
Say something nice.
Really gone out. They've really gone out and upgraded their schedule. They've had a tough preseason schedule.
Yes.
So, you know, they didn't win them all. They won some, but they challenged themselves. Yes. And, you know, that's always been my major criticism with them is they didn't play a tough schedule. You knew they weren't going to have a tough schedule in conference other than North Mac. And so when they ran into adversity in the playoffs, they really weren't prepared for it because they hadn't experienced it.
Right.
I think they have challenged themselves. They played a very tough preseason schedule. Now, have they learned from it? I would think so, because most of those kids have been there for 3 years at least, and the coach has been there. I think this is our 4th year. Mm-hmm. So, you know, they've grown together, and now we're gonna get to see. You know, did that tough schedule prepare them for? Well, they've always been prepared for North Mac. I'm not gonna say prepare them for North Mac.
Well, they've had the better of this rivalry.
Especially late.
Yeah. So from the North Mac point of view, it's time for them to get over the hump. You know,
the hump has been Lake Norman for both of these teams.
Yeah, and they were upset by Mallard Creek, and Mallard Creek didn't have 2 or 3 starters the last time they played, and Mallard Creek still beat them.
Yeah.
So it's going to determine right now, I would think, who's the best team in Charlotte, even though I think Queens Grant and South Meck would have a lot to say about that as well.
Okay. Gary, Randall, what do you think about this game? And is there a danger of trying to make too much of this early in the season?
It's not a danger of making too much of it, but I think Mallard Creek has to be very, very careful. You're at home. You haven't been playing your best basketball of late, but this is a new season, and I think that's the most important part of how you address it. You know, we what we did in 2025 is behind us. Now we're in 2026. this is a new season. We start conference play. We get our biggest rivals right out the gate to start the new year. Like, this is a really, really important game for Mallard Creek just to get things headed in the direction that you want them to go into to March. And, I'm expecting it to be a really good environment. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I want to see how they guard Lanice, and I think it's going to be a really good matchup.
I think it will be too. I think, you probably allow Lanice to get hers and take everybody else away, but that's my theory. But, I don't know. We'll see. Rick.
Well, I think it comes down to the others. I think, Lanice is going to get hers.
That's what I'm saying.
And Anderson is going to get hers. And it comes down to the others. Who's the 2 and 3 threats for both teams? Do they step up and alleviate some of the attention that the two best players are going to get?
And also, how do they handle a big crowd? Because I guarantee you this will be one of the biggest crowds, if not the biggest crowd they're going to play in front of at least to date.
And that's when things get interesting, because you know how it is. Sometimes those lights come on. And everybody wants to be Michael. Nobody wants to be Tito.
That's a very good way to put it. Rick, on the boys' side, Berry High School has not had a winning season in 6 years. They are tied for first place with Harding and Hickory Ridge. This new conference, I think, is going to pay dividends for Berry and Harding and Olympic, in fact. But what do you think about this game with Hickory Ridge? Travian Williams, you had on your All-Observer team.
Well, Hickory Ridge is 8-4. They've had some tough losses. They've had a very difficult schedule, and they've been in and out of the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
Berry, as you well know, took West Charlotte to overtime earlier in the season. So in the zone. So, that's a situation where I think it's really a must-win for Hickory Ridge, because I think the expectations were higher. They were preseason Sweet 16, and I think that's the game that they really need to win on the road.
Yeah, and Berry plays Harding on Friday, so it's a big week for Berry. They're playing the two teams that tied with for first place. And then we got Independence of West Charlotte. Rick, you mentioned that MEC Power 6 conference. This is one of those games where, two heavyweights going at it right out the gate.
Well, we all know that Preston Davis is coming out in a 3-2 zone. That's me.
And West Charlotte does not like zone.
West Charlotte does not like zone. I think that you're going to see a lot of, back screen action and some lobs, diagonal lobs for alley-oops for West Charlotte. But the key there is, can West Charlotte develop a perimeter game? I think that's been their Achilles heel so far. And if they can knock down some shots, I think that will be the key for them. I think they have the ability to it, but when you have the lineup with, Jakari Coleman, and then you have Chomac Womack, and those guys like
AC Preston too. AC Preston, nice.
And he's probably their X factor for them.
Yeah, he's good. I like him. Lefty, my favorite male lefty.
Great mid-range. I think for them I think they can shoot the three. It's just that they don't feel comfortable. They just like going downhill. And it's just going to be a situation for them that they got to learn to develop that particular offensive repertoire for them to be successful and make that deep playoff run. But, Independence is going to come out and play them zone.
Yeah, I'm not a coach anymore, but when I was coaching, I won 96% of my games. If it was me, I would turn Kahari Coleman loose, give him the ball, go do your thing, young fella. That if it was me.
Got to stay out of foul trouble to do that, though.
This is true, but I think he's just a special talent. His ability to pass the ball just really kind of blew my mind when I saw him last week. And he shoots better than I thought as well. And I just think if he was making the decisions, I think they could improve their team a little bit. What do you think, Gary?
How big is this kid?
6'4".
6'4".
And he's thick too. He's not skinny. I mean, he's a good sized kid.
He's 6'4", and he's super athletic.
He's probably 200 pounds.
He has all the tools. He's one of those guys that you say, if you had to make a crystal ball prediction, that you could see this guy play in the league, many years down the road.
Yeah, no, he's got the potential. And like I said, I think that I kind of got the feeling he's almost, and I won't say he's holding back, but it's like, they got the reins on him a little bit. And I would like to see him just kind of turn him loose. I remember when Jeff McGinnis got to West Charlotte, and it was kind of the same way. They, at the beginning of the season, they kind of held him back. And then they gave him the ball, and they took off and won a state championship. With this guy, and Jeff was a 6'4" point guard, just driving them to the state championship.
He's a future 5-star prospect nationally.
Absolutely. All right, West Meck at Huff on Tuesday. That's a girls' game, I think. So that's my bad.
But that's a boys' game that you had on there. You was talking about the two young coaches. Chris Fuel has West Mac at
Oh, I
7,
didn't have it on there. Okay, I'm sorry.
and it's completely turned that program around. He was, West Mac was 0-25 last year, and they haven't had a winning program, I think, since 2009.
Yeah.
Coach Yule's done a phenomenal job, and he's also really challenged him. He's actually played a pretty tough non-conference schedule, and of course you have Bo May is the coach over at Huff, and they're at 7-3.
Yeah.
So that should be a very good game. Battle of the young coaches.
I was impressed with West Mac. I saw him play East Mac at the Jaminski last week, and then, they're very athletic, very well coached. Handled the zone and the man, and kind of stayed together. East Mac was just a little too big for him, but I think they played very, very well. I think East Mac, by the way, is going to be a dangerous team down the road. North Mac Butler on Friday. Gary, is you got Dwayne going to play a really good Butler team. Butler was unbeaten for a long time. I think it was 8 or 9-0. This is going to be a big game, and Butler's gym should be rocking.
Yeah, it's going to be their welcome to the West Side basketball. We've for the longest we had West Charlotte, North Mac and Chambers, and now Butler's going to get to experience what that's like, on a weekly basis. Because that's what it used to be on a weekly, not in, every night, Tuesday, Friday was a war. And so now they have joined the war.
Randall, what do you think about that game?
I think that's going to be a fun one. I have a feeling Dwayne is going to welcome Butler back into this fold with open arms. I definitely think Butler's going to be ready, but North Mac, these are the kind of games that they live for.
But Butler has a really exciting young guard. I think he's gonna have a good game. I think that gym will be packed, and I think North Mac has an edge going in, but would not surprise me because North Mac is not they're not as physically imposing as they've been in previous years. They still play that great defense, but I think if this was every year you're going to try to get Dwayne, it's particularly early, this might be it before they kind of really get rolling. As his teams tend to always get better as we get into February. He has that magic thing he does to get them ready. And when you won 3 state championships in 5 years, I think he knows what he's doing.
I think the key there for Butler is control tempo and limit turnovers.
Yep. 100%.
Yes, but that's going to be hard to do when North School.
Yeah, it's hard when DJ Lindsey's picking you up 94 feet.
Yeah, they're going to press and trap and really try to speed you up, and they're really good at it. And
very good.
That's what makes North Mac so good is that defense they play. And Randall, you asked me to add this Marvin Ridge and Catholic game on Friday. What you got?
Both teams are 11-2. Like Coach Rick said earlier, I think Patrick McCarthy has done a fabulous job with Marvin Ridge,
yes,
Matt Habernick, and Matt Rivlin have both been really, really good for them. I think this Marvin Ridge team shoots it well. They're playing well. And then obviously we know what Coach King does over at Catholic. Jack Siegel has been playing great for them. And I think this is going to be a really, really interesting matchup. We don't talk about Union County basketball a lot. And I do think that this year, we get some better matchups. And so this is a game that I'm probably going to be at on Friday night.
Well, that will be the biggest crowd on Friday night, I guarantee you. That crowd, that'll be overflowing at Catholic on Friday night. That'll be absolutely crazy. Well, now it's time for my favorite part of the show. We're kind of moving along. Gary, I'm so used to football.
I know football. We just be getting started.
We just kidding. Rick and Randall have no idea what I'm talking about. This time for Coach versus Coach. I got the old theme music, but I'm gonna play it anyway. All right, first question. Should CMS or the state association, Gary, allow non-competitive girls basketball teams that don't have JV programs to play varsity games before JV? And just so fans at home understand, what we're saying is the girls varsity game would be the first game at 4:30, followed by the boys JV at 6. Followed by the varsity boys at 7:30 versus playing that girls game at 6 o'clock. But go ahead, Gary.
Yes. Yeah, I'm saying it from a fan standpoint. I know that, varsity games have to have 3 officials. And so that may be the hang up of, making those 3 officials wait for the JV game and then go back and do the boys varsity game. or being able to get 3 officials for 4:30 game. But if you've ever sat through a girls varsity game where the score is like 75 to 4 or to 5, I mean, it just wears you down. I've gone to enough of them that it exhausted me so much watching that type of girls game that I didn't feel like watching the boys game. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's fair to the fans that, you know, that want to get there and see some competition. You know, that's all people want to see is competition. They don't want to sit through a blowout waiting on the boys game. But a lot of times, you know, especially if it's a big boys game, they're going to get there early so they can get a seat. Mm-hmm. And then to watch, you know, and I know it's still a running clock with the girls, but it's just hard to watch that. And it's, you know what? It's also embarrassing to the girls when they're in a full gym and they can't do anything about how bad they're getting beat. Mm-hmm. And so I just think for the fan, they should leave it up to the school to decide, is the girls' game going to be at 4:30 or is it going to be at 6?
Okay. Richard?
I like the idea of having the JV boys game before the varsity, but I think Gary hit on a big point. On the JV, you only require 2 officials. And for varsity, you have 3. So you may get into a dilemma there. You would have 1 official that would have to sit out, and I'm not sure whether that's going to be feasible or not.
Okay. Randall?
I agree with both of them. It makes sense, but from a official standpoint, going from 3 to 2 back to 3, that gets a little bit tricky. But if you could work your way around that, I think it could be good.
If it's going to be 80 to 4, does it matter if there's 2 or 3 officials?
I don't mean
that.
That's very true. Like if we just go 3 officials for the varsity boys game, I don't think that would be an issue.
Okay. Well, Randall, since you're on screen, question number 2: should CMS allow these non-competitive girls basketball teams to play a JV-only schedule?
I think it would benefit them greatly. Like Coach said earlier, it's just really tough when you walk into a gym and you got all these people there and you're losing 80 to 5. It doesn't keep retention in the sport. It doesn't make girls eager to play. And we already have an issue with getting girls to play basketball. Mm-hmm. So if we can get coaches that are enthusiastic and want to teach and develop these kids, it'd be great for the programs. But also if we can give them schedules where they can actually have a chance to compete and get better, I think that's huge too.
Richard?
100%. I think something has to be done to alleviate the gap between the haves and have-nots. And I think we had talked about it earlier. If you look at the collegiate game, it's at its peak. The WNBA is at its peak. I think it's going to take 4, 5, 6 years for it to filter down. And we see some level of competition get better at the varsity level. But if I'm a young female player and I have a chance to play on a JV schedule, but it's a competitive game and it's fun, I think it's going to encourage more young ladies to come out and play.
Gary?
Yeah, I think that would be the best thing to keep kids involved in the sport. Like I said, I'm at a school now where the turnover on the team is so great, and it's not the coach. It's the fact that, you know, you got 9th graders who come out there and, you know, they may have had some success in middle school and they run up against one of these super talented teams and they get beat by 70, 80 points. And after a season of that, they just give up. And so the school is constantly starting over every season. And that's not how you grow a program. And it's hard on the coaches. I think that would be the best way to save girls basketball, because right now it's dying. Girls basketball in this area is dying.
Okay, well, Gary, since you're on the screen, we'll come back to you with this last question. With 8 classes now, what's the best way for the state association to put on regional state championships? In the past 2 years, they've been 1 week in one site. This year, they're talking about putting them in 2 different sites.
Well, I just think Greensboro is centrally located. So
yes.
I just think you bring the finals to since you got 8 classes now. I just think you play the finals in Greensboro, and you put regionals in in the west or the east again, like we used to, instead of trying to put the regions and the finals in one site. I think you just put the finals in Greensboro, since it's centrally located, and then the regional championships in each side of the state. One in the
like
west,
4 girls at UNCG and 4 boys at Reynolds. I'm not Reynolds, but at
LR.
Lawrence Joe.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, all right, Rick.
I would agree. It's I would like to have a super weekend. We have basically everybody playing for a state championship, whether it's 2, 3, 4 days. But as far as the regional sites, I think you need, it used to be like the West Regionals were at Lenore-Rhine.
Yeah.
So I like that format quite a bit. So whether it's LR or Lawrence Joel Coliseum in Winston-Salem, I think that, just to have a location that the teams can, focus to and have a dream. Hey, it's the road to, Hickory or the road to Winston-Salem. I think that creates a lot of interest for the fans and the teams.
Randall.
I like the idea. I think it was fun back when we had the regionals at Lenore-Rhine and going up to Hickory and watching some of those really, really good games in that old school field gym. It being filled up, and then I think you take the state championships and you play them in Greensboro, and I don't know if you split them up. You do 4 classes on Friday for the state championship and 4 on Saturday. I don't know how that really works. I leave that up to guys like Coach Rick. When it comes to organizing events, but I do think that would be a cool way to do it, just so everybody does know where they're going.
Yeah, I will remind you guys, when they used to have the regionals at Lenore-Rhine, a lot of times they had overcrowding issues. A lot of times they had overcrowding issues, but when they were at Lawrence Joel, it did go off pretty smoothly. I don't know what the situation is with getting gyms and costs and all that stuff, but I think I love the idea of West and East regionals. You might need 2 sites, at least in the West, for those, but definitely state championships. I would love to see it at Joel and UNC Greensboro. I think those are 2 best places to have it. In fact, I don't know why you just couldn't keep it in one week and have the boys at Lawrence Joel and the girls at UNC Greensboro, which is basically essentially what they were doing the past 2 years, with a format that I really did like, because everybody knew where they were going, and it was just easy to get to because it was center of the state. But we'll see what happens. They hadn't announced the formal plan yet, but it should be interesting. I cannot believe we're like 50 minutes in, Gary, and we're done. This is great.
What happens when we don't? This is what happens when we don't have Mr. Alex Bass.
Oh man, it's crazy. All right, Randall, final thoughts.
I think.
Oh, wait! I did forget something. Rick's got a big tournament on Saturday. My bad, Rick. Ambassador Classic. I love that final game there, Ambassador Christian East Meck, because I think East Meck's a really good team, and Ambassador is looking like a really good team as well.
Well, Ambassadors played a killer schedule, and East Meck, they picked up Jason Buzzard, and they were on a win streak. They did lose the other night, but Jason couldn't.
He didn't play.
Yeah. He didn't play. So that particular game, I think, is going to be really, really good. And of course, we have West Charlotte as well. Anytime you have West Charlotte, they're going to bring fans and they're going to bring excitement to the gym.
Yeah,
they're just one of the more entertaining teams to watch, bar none. So
Jacoby Davis doing a good job. They're a very young team and very excited. Their guard play is really good at high level. They got three wings, about 6'4", and all of them can dribble, pass, and shoot. It's really impressive.
Yeah. One thing I did want to mention, before we close, and we talked about one of the things at the very beginning, of the very first question was about the state of basketball in Charlotte.
Yeah.
Okay. But I also, I made some notes and just wanted to just give you an idea. While a lot of people may think it's a little bit down, at the same time, there's a lot of teams from the Charlotte area that have a chance to win a state championship. And I'm going to start off with the private school sector first.
Okay.
Providence Day has been in our, top 10 in the Sweet 16. They play the second toughest schedule in the state. They have a legitimate chance to win the state 4A. Their main competition is going to be for Forsyth Country Day. And then, of course, my sleeper teams are going to be Carmel, who another team that's played a very demanding schedule.
He's harding about 40 on Saturday.
and they won big. They're on a roll, but they're starting to gel together and play. But you look at them, and Charlotte Christian's another team that's sort of a surprise team at the private school. But I'm looking at Providence Day as a legitimate chance to play for the state 4A. Now in the 3A, this is probably one of the toughest rounds to go. You're going to have Concord Academy, you're going to have Davison Day, you're going to have Greensboro Day, and Gaston Christian.
Yeah.
So out of that, you got two teams from Charlotte, Gaston Day and Concord Academy, that have, and also Davison Day, three teams that have a legitimate chance of winning the state championship. Now, you look at Davison Day's record; it is not very attractive, but again, they've played the toughest schedule in the state, so they've taken a lot of losses early. But they got three guys that are 6'10".
They got a bunch of 7-foot dudes, a bunch of giraffes walking in the gym.
So and I'm looking down the list. You look at the 8A.
Yeah.
And let's look at the 8A, for example. You got West Charlotte, Audrey Kell, Chambers, Myers Park. Now Myers Park is, their record is not is showing what they can be, but they play some very tough teams, and they got a first-year coach in Dory Hines. They're starting to get it gel together. They had a big win at Independence on the road. Now they did lose to West Charlotte in overtime, which was a classic game. But you got four teams from the Charlotte area in the 8A that can play for a state championship. That I'm talking about legitimate can win the state 8A. And then in the 7A, you have North Meck, Marvin Ridge, Mooresville, Butler, and Indy, and Hickory Ridge. And I would think, between North Meck, would be the favorite, but there's another opportunity for a team from the Charlotte to win a state championship. In the 6A, you got Charlotte Catholic, and then in the 5A, you have Hunter Huss, East Lincoln, North Lincoln. We haven't spoke much about J.M. Robinson. They've only lost one game. They beat Mooresville and lost to Mooresville, so they're legitimate at the 5A. And you have Carson, and then the team that's going to be, I think they could win the 8A, 7A, or 6A, and that's Queens Grant, who's just going to win the 2A hands down. But
they got the best coach in the state, according to somebody on this show.
Well, and they do. They got, and he's really just, and I got to say this about Joe. He's been coaching 20 plus years. Yeah. The man has never received a technical foul. Get that. Yeah, in 20 years of coaching, he's never received a technical foul. That is unheard of in today's climate and culture.
Yeah.
And he has a powerhouse. And I think like you said earlier, if he can keep that group together, they will be a national level team next year and the year after.
Absolutely. All right. Now, Randall, final.
I will tell you, Coach Rick kind of hit it on the head. My final thought tonight is this one's for the coaches. I just want to commend a lot of the Charlotte area coaches for going out and playing people. I think the schedules this year have been amazing. I know that, we got to see some matchups that we don't typically see. And I think a lot of people wanted to see how good their teams were. They wanted to get their teams prepared and ready for this run in March. And I think with a lot of the matchups that we've seen so far this season, we've gotten that. And it doesn't always happen. Sometimes people don't want to schedule opponents. Sometimes people don't want other people to see them. But I think that when you look at the schedule of a lot of these coaches, both boys and girls, I think these coaches did a tremendous job of scheduling games where their teams, really had to challenge themselves. And so I just want to say kudos to them.
All right. Well, we're about to hit the teeth of the season, the rivalries, the conference play, the conference tournaments, then we get to the state playoffs. We'll be here for all of it. We'll have Mr. Football finalists in a couple of weeks. That should be interesting to see where in Mr. Basketball and Ms. Basketball. That should be interesting in a couple of weeks to see where we are. We got to add a new co-host next week. Cam will be back with some interviews. We may have another special treat coming up, and we'll get more players and coaches in the show as we go on. But that is Randall Clark, the best trainer I know. That is Rick Lewis, the number one voice of high school basketball, as you guys have heard. And that is Gary Richmond, my frat brother, my football co-host. I see Gary like 20 times a week, seems like.
Yeah.
And he stopped liking the Cowboys. That made us even closer after that. All right, so I'm Langston, and we are done talking preps.